My husband sued for full custody, claiming I was mentally unstable and unfit to be a mother. My 7-year-old daughter Taylor stood up and asked the judge, "Can I show you what daddy does?" When the screen lit up, the judge ordered the bailiff to lock the doors immediately. Hello everyone and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today on this journey. I want to invite you to go ahead and grab a warm cup of tea or coffee, find your favorite comfortable spot on the couch, and just let the tension of the day melt away. We are going to get through this together. Now let us embark on our story. On the day my life was supposed to end, the courtroom in downtown Hartford smelled like lemon wood polish and stale old paper. That specific scent, dry and chemical, will haunt me for the rest of my life. My husband Zachary Wilson sat across the aisle wearing a $3,000 Italian suit, checking his expensive watch as if he were waiting for a boring board meeting to wrap up. He did not look at me. He had not looked at me, really truly looked at me, in years. Beside him, his lawyer Timothy Thomas was stacking a pile of papers that detailed exactly why Kiana Williams was unfit, unstable, and unworthy of raising our 7-year-old daughter Taylor. The judge was reading through the final decree, and every word felt like a heavy stone being placed on my chest, crushing the air out of my lungs. I was about to lose my house. I was about to lose my dignity. But worst of all, I was about to lose full custody of the only thing that mattered to me in this entire world. I gripped the edge of the wooden table so hard my knuckles turned white, trying to keep my breathing steady, trying not to give Zachary the satisfaction of seeing me cry. He had won. His money, his connections, and his cruel lies had won. But then the heavy oak doors at the back of the room creaked open. A hush fell over the gallery. We all turned. Standing there, looking smaller than I had ever seen her in the vastness of that legal chamber, was my daughter Taylor. She was not supposed to be there. She was clutching her pink backpack to her chest, her eyes wide and terrified. But she did not run to me. She did not run to her father either. She walked straight toward the bench, her little sneakers squeaking on the marble floor, and in her hand she held a shattered, taped-up tablet that I thought had been broken months ago. She looked up at the intimidating man in the black robe and asked a question that stopped my heart cold. "Your Honor, can I show you something?" Daddy said. "Mommy is not allowed to know, but I think you should see it." The judge paused. Zachary half rose from his seat, panic flashing in his eyes for the very first time. What happened next did not just change the verdict, it changed everything. But before I tell you what was on that screen, what made the judge order the bailiff to lock the doors, I need to tell you how we got here. I need to tell you how a woman who thought she had the perfect marriage ended up sitting in that chair waiting to be destroyed. Before we begin this journey together, please take a quick moment to like this video and comment down below which city or state you are listening from. It helps me so much to know I am connected with friends all over the country. Thank you for your kindness. Now let us go back to the morning everything fell apart. Part 1: The Silent Wall and the Forgotten Wife. The morning my world collapsed began with the smell of burnt toast and the overwhelming silence that had become the soundtrack of my life. It was a Tuesday in November, one of those crisp gray mornings in Connecticut where the frost clings to the windows like delicate lace, blocking out the world outside. I had been up since 5:30 in the morning. That was my routine. I moved through our large, beautiful suburban kitchen like a ghost, careful not to clang any pans or let the cabinet doors snap shut. Over 15 years of marriage, I had learned that Zachary valued peace above all else in the morning. He needed his environment to be seamless, efficient, and quiet. I was not just a wife. I was the stage manager for his successful life, ensuring the lighting and sound were perfect before the star walked onto the set. I laid out his vitamins next to his plate in a straight line. I checked the collar of his white dress shirt one last time to ensure the starch was crisp just the way he liked it. I placed the keto-friendly almond flour pancakes on the warming rack because he had been complaining about his carb intake. Everything had to be perfect. It was a habit born of love, I told myself repeatedly. But deep down in the places I was afraid to look, I knew it was a habit born of fear. Not fear of physical harm, but fear of his disapproval. Fear of that withering sigh he would give if the coffee was lukewarm or if I asked him a simple question while he was reading the news on his phone. At 6 o'clock sharp I heard his footsteps on the stairs, heavy, rhythmic and confident. Zachary walked like a man who owned the ground beneath his feet. He entered the kitchen smelling of expensive cedar aftershave and success. He did not say good morning. He walked past me as if I were part of the stainless steel appliances, pulled out his chair and sat down. Coffee, he said without looking up from his phone screen. I poured the steaming dark roast into his favorite ceramic mug and placed it silently by his right hand, making sure the handle was facing him. Here you go, honey, I said, my voice sounding too eager, too desperate for a tiny scrap of connection. I made sure to use the beans you brought back from the city. He took a sip, grimaced slightly, and set the mug down with a little too much force. It is bitter, Kiana, you ground the beans too fine again. My chest tightened painfully. I am sorry, I whispered. I used the setting you showed me last week. Well, fix it for tomorrow, he muttered, scrolling through an email with his thumb. I have a board meeting at 10 o'clock. I need to be sharp, not distracted by bad coffee. I stood by the granite counter, wringing my hands in my apron. I wanted to tell him that the grinder was actually broken. I wanted to tell him that I had a migraine that had lasted for 3 days. I wanted to ask him why he had not touched me or held my hand in 6 months. But I swallowed it all down. Silence was safer. I looked at him, admiring the gray temples that made him look distinguished and the sharp jawline. He was a handsome man. He was the man I had given up everything for. I used to be an interior designer. I had talent. I had my own clients. But when we got married, Zachary told me that his wife did not need to work. He wanted a partner who could manage his home, raise his children, and host his dinner parties. He wanted a legacy, he said. And I, being young and blindly in love, had agreed. I thought I was building a life. I did not realize I was slowly erasing myself. The heavy atmosphere shifted only when we heard the thumping of small feet running down the hallway. Daddy, Mommy. Taylor burst into the kitchen, her hair a tangled mess of morning curls, her pajama top buttoned wrong. She was the sun in our gray sky. She was 7 years old, with eyes that saw too much and a heart that felt too deeply. Zachary's face transformed instantly. The cold, indifferent mask fell away, replaced by a beaming, fatherly smile. He put down his phone. There she is, he boomed, holding out his arms. There is my little genius, come here, Taylor. Taylor giggled and climbed onto his lap. Daddy, are you going to work again? I have to, sweetheart. Daddy has to make the money so we can keep this big house and buy you all those Lego sets you like. You want the new Mars rover set, do you not? Yes, Taylor cheered. I watched them from the sink, a painful lump forming in my throat. He was so warm with her. Why could he not spare just an ounce of that warmth for me? Was I so unlovable? I placed Taylor's plate of scrambled eggs on the table. Eat up, sweetie, I said softly. The bus comes in 20 minutes. Zachary checked his watch, a Rolex I had saved up for 2 years to buy him for his 40th birthday. He set Taylor down abruptly. All right, playtime is over. I have to go. He stood up, grabbed his leather briefcase, and smoothed his jacket. He kissed Taylor on the top of her head. Be good, listen to your mother. He said it automatically, like a script he had memorized. He walked toward the garage door. Zachary, I called out. Will you be home for dinner? I was thinking of making that pot roast you like. He did not turn around. He opened the door, the cold November air rushing in. Do not wait up, I have a client dinner, I will be late. And then he was gone. No kiss goodbye. No I love you. Just the sound of the heavy door clicking shut and the roar of his luxury sedan engine fading down the driveway. I stood there in the silence, the smell of his aftershave lingering in the air like a ghost. I felt invisible. I looked at Taylor, who was happily eating her eggs, oblivious to the fact that her mother's heart was breaking a little more every single day. I told myself it was just a phase. Men get stressed. Work is hard. I just needed to try harder, be a better wife, be quieter, be more perfect. I spent the morning cleaning a house that was already spotless. I scrubbed the hardwood floors until my knees ached. I reorganized the pantry, labeling every jar. I was trying to scrub away the anxiety gnawing at my gut. At noon, just as I was finishing a load of laundry, the doorbell rang. It was a courier named Adam Clark. "Delivery for Kiana Williams," the man said, handing me a thick, heavy envelope. My heart skipped a beat. I was not expecting anything. I signed for it, my hands trembling slightly. The return address was a law firm in the city. Vance and Associates. I did not recognize the name. I walked into the living room and sat on the edge of the beige sofa Zachary had picked out. I tore open the tab. I pulled out a stack of stiff legal documents. The words at the top of the page blurred before my eyes, then snapped into terrifying focus. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Petitioner Zachary Wilson. Respondent Kiana Williams. I could not breathe. The room started to spin. I flipped the page, reading frantically. He was not just filing for divorce. The accusations jumped out at me like physical blows. Unstable emotional state. Failure to contribute to the household. Requesting full physical and legal custody of the minor child Taylor Williams. Requesting exclusive use of the marital residence. He wanted everything. He wanted the house. He wanted the money. He wanted Taylor. He was throwing me out like garbage. "No," I whispered, the sound choking in my throat. "No, this cannot be real." I stood up, the papers scattering onto the floor like fallen leaves. I needed to call him. There had to be a mistake. Maybe it was a prank. But deep down I knew. The coldness, the late nights, the criticism. It had all been leading to this. Suddenly I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. The sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway. The engine cut off. A car door slammed. Zachary was back. The front door opened with a terrifying calmness. Zachary walked in, not with the hurried energy of a man who had forgotten a file, but with the slow, deliberate stride of an executioner. He did not look surprised to see me standing there, pale and shaking, surrounded by the scattered legal papers. In fact, he looked relieved. He closed the door behind him and locked it. The click of the deadbolt echoed in the large foyer like a gunshot. "I see you got the mail," he said. His voice was devoid of any emotion. It was casual, as if he were commenting on the weather. I stared at him, my hands trembling by my sides. I could not find my voice. The man standing before me looked like my husband, wore my husband's clothes, but his eyes were those of a stranger, cold, flat, and cruel. "Zachary," I finally choked out, tears welling up in my eyes. "What is this? Is this a joke? You want a divorce?" He walked past me into the living room, stepping right over the pages of the petition as if they were trash. He went to the liquor cabinet and poured himself a glass of whiskey, even though it was barely noon. "It is not a joke, Kiana. It is a rescue mission for me and for Taylor." "Rescue?" I gasped, the absurdity of the word hitting me. "From what? I have dedicated my entire life to you. I gave up my career. I gave up my friends. I cook your meals. I clean your clothes. I raise our daughter." He spun around, the glass clinking sharply against his wedding ring. A ring that suddenly felt like a lie. "And look at you," he sneered, his lip curling in disgust. "Look at yourself, Kiana. You are pathetic. You are a glorified maid. Do you really think a man like me, a man who closes million-dollar deals before lunch, wants to come home to this?" He gestured vaguely at my comfortable sweater and leggings, at my messy bun, at my tear-streaked face. "You are outdated. You are boring. You have no ambition." "I have no ambition because you asked me to stay home," I screamed, the injustice burning in my chest. "You told me you wanted a traditional wife." "I changed my mind," he said coldly, taking a sip of his drink. "People grow. I grew. You did not. You stagnated. And quite frankly, I am tired of dragging you along. But full custody. I pointed a shaking finger at the papers on the floor. You are trying to take Taylor. You cannot do that. I am her mother. I am the one who takes her to school, who helps her with homework, who holds her when she has a nightmare. You barely see her. Zachary laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound that chilled me to the bone. That is exactly why I need to take her. You are making her soft. You are making her weak, just like you. Taylor needs a role model who understands success. She needs a mother figure who is intelligent, sophisticated, and capable, not a housekeeper. Who? I whispered, a chill running down my spine. Is there someone else? He did not answer immediately. He just smiled, a small, cruel smirk that told me everything I needed to know. That is none of your business, he said. But let us just say Taylor deserves better. And my lawyer Timothy Thomas is the best in the state. We have evidence, Kiana. We have documentation of your instability. Instability? I stepped back, confused. I am not unstable. I am perfectly sane. Are you? He took a step toward me, invading my personal space, using his height to intimidate me. You cry over nothing. You forget things. You get hysterical when things do not go your way. Remember last week when you screamed at Taylor in the mall? I did not scream at her, I protested, backing away until I hit the wall. She was running toward the escalator and her shoelace was untied. I was scared she would fall. I was protecting her. See, Zachary said softly, his voice dropping to a sinister whisper. You are getting hysterical right now. Just like the report says. What report? You will see in court, he said. He finished his drink and set the glass down on the mantelpiece. Here is how this is going to go. You are going to sign those papers. You are going to agree to the terms. You will get a small stipend, enough to rent a studio apartment somewhere far away from here. And you will give me Taylor. I will never sign that, I spat, finding a sudden surge of anger cutting through my fear. I will fight you. I will tell the judge everything. Zachary's face hardened. The mask of civility dropped completely. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. You have no money, Kiana. You have no job. You have no connections. Do you really think you can win against me? I managed our household finances for 15 years and I did it with precision, but Zachary stood there and looked at me like I was a stranger he had just fired. Who do you think the judge is going to believe, he asked me, his voice low and dripping with a confidence that made my stomach turn. The successful finance director with a spotless reputation, or the unemployed emotional housewife with zero assets to her name? He leaned in close and the scent of expensive whiskey mixed with peppermint filled the space between us. It was a smell I used to associate with him coming home to relax, but now it just smelled like danger. If you fight me, Kiana, I will destroy you. I will make sure you end up on the street with nothing. I will paint you as so mentally unstable that you will be lucky if you get supervised visitation with Taylor once a year. Do not test me. He shoved me backward, not hard enough to bruise but hard enough to send a message. I stumbled, my heels catching on the rug, and I fell onto the living room carpet, landing right in the middle of the scattered legal documents. I am going to pack a bag, he said, straightening his silk tie in the hallway mirror as if he were just heading out for a dinner reservation. I will be staying at a hotel for a few days until my lawyer gets the eviction order finalized for you. Have your things ready to go by the end of the week. He walked toward the stairs, leaving me sobbing on the floor of the beautiful colonial home in Hartford that was no longer mine. I felt small. I felt broken. I felt utterly defeated. But as I watched him ascend the stairs, treating me like an insect, he had just stepped on, a tiny spark ignited deep within my gut. It wasn't hope, not yet. It was the primal instinct of a mother who had just been threatened. He wanted a war. He had no idea what a mother would do to keep her child. After Zachary left, the house fell into a terrifying silence. I sat on the floor for what felt like hours staring at the dust motes dancing in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the sheer curtains. My mind, usually so organized, was a chaotic storm of fear and confusion. How did I miss this? How did I let it get this bad? But as the initial shock began to fade, replaced by a cold aching clarity, I realized I hadn't missed the signs at all. I had ignored them. I had buried them under layers of excuses because the truth was too painful to face. I thought back to 6 months ago. That was when the business trips started to increase. Zachary had always traveled for work, maybe once a month, to Chicago or New York. But suddenly he was gone every weekend. Emergency client meetings, he would say. Merger negotiations. He would come home smelling of expensive hotel soap and a distinct woody perfume that certainly wasn't mine. When I asked him about it, he would roll his eyes and sigh. It is the room diffusers at the Ritz. Kiana, don't be paranoid. It is unbecoming. So I stopped asking. I told myself I was crazy. Then there were the mood swings. He became critical of everything. The way I dressed was too frumpy. The way I laughed was too loud. He stopped wearing his wedding ring at home, claiming it irritated his skin after playing golf. I swallowed that lie too. But the biggest red flag, the one that should have made me run for the hills, was the money. About 3 months ago, I tried to buy Taylor a new winter coat online from a department store. The card was declined. When I called Zachary, he exploded. He told me I was spending too much on groceries, that the market was down, that we needed to tighten our belts. He put me on a strict cash allowance. He took away my access to the main credit cards, saying he needed to consolidate debt. Like a fool, I handed them over. I trusted him. He was the finance expert after all. I need to know, I whispered to the empty room. I need to know how bad it is. I scrambled up from the floor and ran to Zachary's home office. He usually kept it locked, but in his arrogance today he had left the door slightly ajar. I rushed to his desktop computer. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I tried to guess his password. Taylor 2015. No. Kiana. Definitely not. I tried his birthday. No. Then I remembered the new car he was obsessed with. Vintage Mustang 65. The screen unlocked. I didn't care about his emails right now. I went straight to the banking portal. We had a joint savings account, which was our rainy day fund and Taylor's college fund. The last time I had seen a statement over a year ago, there was nearly $300,000 in there. It was money we had saved from the sale of my apartment before we got married, plus his bonuses. I clicked on savings. The page loaded. My breath hitched in my throat. I blinked, thinking my eyes were deceiving me. I refreshed the page. 0. Oh my God, I gasped, clutching my chest. Oh my God, Zachary. I clicked on the transaction history. The screen filled with transfers. It wasn't one big withdrawal. It was a systematic draining of our life. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. All transferred to an entity called Davis Consulting LLC and another account in the Cayman Islands. He had been stealing from us for months. He had emptied Taylor's college fund. He had taken every penny of the safety net I thought we had. I checked the checking account. There was $500 left. $500 to last me forever. Panic, cold and sharp, seized my lungs. I was hyperventilating. I was a 42-year-old woman with no job, no resume for the last 15 years, and now absolutely no money. He hadn't just left me. He had crippled me. He wanted to ensure I couldn't hire a lawyer. He wanted to make sure I couldn't fight back. I clicked on the credit card statements. My stomach turned as I scrolled. While he was telling me to tighten my belt on groceries, he was spending thousands. Tiffany & Company $4,500. The Four Seasons Hotel $2,800. Saks Fifth Avenue $1,200 for women's handbags. I hadn't received any jewelry. I hadn't stayed at the Four Seasons and I certainly hadn't gotten a new handbag. He was building a new life with someone else using my daughter's future to pay for it. The rage that hit me then was different from the sadness. It was hot. It was blinding. I printed everything. I printed the zero balance. I printed the transfers. I printed the jewelry receipts. I used up all the paper in the printer and went to the closet to get more. As I reached for the paper, my hand brushed against a box on the top shelf. It was an old dusty box labeled Kiana's Drafts. I pulled it down. Inside were my old sketchbooks, my drafting compass, my expensive architectural pens, the tools of the trade I had abandoned. I touched the cold metal of the compass. I remembered who I used to be. I used to manage construction sites. I used to negotiate with contractors. I used to be tough. Zachary had convinced me that Kiana the architect was too hard, too masculine. He had molded me into Kiana the housewife. But Kiana the housewife couldn't survive this. Kiana the housewife was broken. If I wanted to save Taylor, I had to find that old version of myself. I had to stop crying and start calculating. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification from the school app. Bus arriving in 10 minutes. Taylor. I wiped my face aggressively with my sleeve. I couldn't let her see me like this. I grabbed the stack of printed evidence and hid it under my mattress. I washed my face with cold water. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for my daughter. And Zachary Wilson had made a fatal mistake. He thought taking my money made me weak. He forgot that a mother with her back against the wall is the most dangerous creature on earth. The next morning, after I put Taylor on the school bus, forcing a smile so bright it hurt my face, I knew I needed help. But who? Zachary had slowly isolated me from my friends over the years. They are jealous of our lifestyle, he would say. Or they are bad influences. Now I realized it was a strategic move to leave me alone when the end came. I sat in my car staring at the steering wheel, my mind racing. I needed someone who knew Zachary. Someone who knew his secrets but wasn't under his spell. Then a name popped into my head. Octavia. Octavia Brown was Zachary's executive assistant for 5 years. She was efficient, kind, and she always sent me reminder texts for Taylor's birthdays. But 6 months ago she was abruptly fired. Zachary told me she was stealing office supplies, but it never sounded right. Octavia was the type of woman who returned a pen if she accidentally took it home. I found her number in my old contacts. My thumb hovered over the call button. Would she even talk to me? I was the wife of the man who fired her. I dialed. It rang 4 times. Hello. Her voice was guarded. Octavia, it is Kiana Williams. Silence. Then a heavy sigh. Mrs. Williams. I wondered when you would call. My heart leaped. You did. I heard about the filing. News travels fast in the firm, even for us ex-employees. Octavia, I need to talk to you. Please, I don't know who else to turn to. We met an hour later at a Greasy Spoon diner on the edge of town, a place Zachary wouldn't be caught dead in. Octavia looked tired. She was stirring her coffee nervously when I slid into the booth opposite her. I don't have much money, Octavia. I started by being honest. I can't pay you for information. But he is trying to take Taylor. He took everything. Octavia looked up, her eyes softening. He is a monster, Kiana. I tried to warn you, but I couldn't get past his gatekeepers. Why were you really fired? I asked. Octavia looked around to make sure no one was listening. I wasn't fired for stealing supplies. I was fired because I saw the emails. I saw the travel itineraries for him and her. Her. I leaned in. Who is she? Octavia, please. Octavia hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. He made me sign a non-disclosure agreement. If I talk, he could sue me for everything I have. He is already suing me for everything I have. I reached across the table and grabbed her hand. He emptied Taylor's college fund. He left us with zero. Please, Octavia. I am drowning. Octavia bit her lip. She looked at my desperate face, then down at her coffee. Davis, she whispered. Look into Davis Consulting. I saw that name on the bank transfers. I said, is that a company? It is a shell company, Octavia said, rapidly, keeping her voice low. But it is named after her. Dominique Davis. Dominique Davis. The name meant nothing to me. She is a psychologist, Octavia revealed, dropping a bombshell. She was brought in as a corporate consultant for the firm last year. Corporate wellness, leadership coaching, that sort of thing. Zachary fell for her hard. Or rather, she dug her claws in. A psychologist. I felt sick. He is leaving me for a psychologist. It is worse than that, Kiana. Octavia leaned in closer. She is not just his mistress. She is his strategist. I heard them in his office once. She was telling him exactly how to handle you. She told him to cut off your funds slowly so you wouldn't notice until it was too late. She told him to start documenting your emotional outbursts. She is the one who orchestrated this whole divorce plan. I sat back, the breath knocked out of me. It wasn't just a midlife crisis affair. It was a calculated psychological dismantling of my life engineered by a professional. Why, I whispered. Why go to such lengths? Why not just leave? Because of the prenup, Octavia said. Or rather, the lack of one. You have been married 15 years. In this state, you are entitled to half of everything. Zachary's assets are worth millions. He is too greedy to give you half. So they came up with a plan to make you look unfit, to make you the villain so the judge would award him everything. Tears pricked my eyes. It was so evil. It was so thorough. Does he know you know this? I asked. He suspects. That is why he fired me. He threatened to blacklist me from every firm in the city if I opened my mouth. Octavia squeezed my hand back. I can't testify, Kiana. I can't go up against his lawyers. They will crush me, but I can point you in the right direction. Check the dates on the transfers. Cross-reference them with his business trips to Switzerland. He is hiding assets offshore. And be careful. Dominique is smart. She knows how to manipulate people. She manipulates him and he manipulates you. I left the diner shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from adrenaline. I had a name. Dominique Davis. And I knew their game. They were gaslighting me on an industrial scale, but knowledge wasn't enough. I needed a lawyer, a shark. But sharks cost money and I had zero. I drove home, my mind racing. I had to liquidate the only thing Zachary hadn't touched. I went straight to my closet and pulled down the hidden box from the top shelf. Not the drafts this time, but the velvet pouch inside. My grandmother's vintage emerald necklace and my professional drafting set. Solid silver compasses, German engineering pens. They were my pride and joy, symbols of the career I hoped to one day return to. I looked at them, then I looked at a photo of Taylor on my nightstand. For you, I whispered. I shoved them into my purse and drove to the pawn shop on the bad side of town. The pawn shop smelled of stale cigarettes and desperation. It was a world away from the country club Zachary frequented. I stood at the counter feeling exposed, clutching my grandmother's emerald necklace and my professional drafting set. The broker, a man named Mark Jackson with thick glasses and thicker fingers, examined the necklace with a loupe. It is vintage, I said, my voice wavering. Art Deco. My grandmother left it to me. It was insured for $10,000. Insurance value ain't street value, lady, he grunted. He dropped the necklace onto the scale. And the drafting tools. Who uses these anymore? Everyone uses computers. They are solid silver antique German ruling pens. Please. He looked at me taking in my designer coat that was a few seasons old, my frantic eyes. He knew I had no other options. 3,000 for the lot, he said. 3,000. That necklace alone is worth so much more. Take it or leave it. I swallowed my pride. $3,000. It was barely enough for a retain. Or let alone a legal battle, but it was $3,000 more than I had this morning. I will take it, I whispered. I walked out with a roll of cash in my purse, feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. I had just sold my past to save my future. I didn't go to the glass and steel skyscrapers downtown. I knew those firms. They charged $500 an hour just to answer the phone. Instead, I drove to a part of town where the buildings were brick and the signs were hand-painted. Octavia had given me a name before I left the diner. George Robinson. He is old school, she had said. He hates bullies. Mr. Robinson's office was above a dry cleaner. The stairs creaked. The waiting room had magazines from 5 years ago. But when I walked into his office, I saw stacks of files everywhere, not disorganized but lived in. George Robinson was a man in his 70s wearing a cardigan that had seen better days. He had wild white hair and eyes that looked like they could cut glass. Mrs. Williams, he rasped, gesturing to a chair that had duct tape on the armrest. Your husband is Zachary Wilson. The hedge fund guy. Yes, I said, sitting down. How did you know? I read the papers. I know the sharks in this town. Timothy Thomas represents him, right? Yes. Robinson let out a dry chuckle. Timothy Thomas. Just hearing that man's name made George Robinson shake his head in disgust. He told me that Timothy would sue his own mother for a parking ticket if there was a single dollar of profit in it. George looked at me over the rim of his reading glasses. His office was small and smelled like old coffee and dust, a stark contrast to the glass and steel high-rise where Zachary's shark of a lawyer worked. You do not have the money for a fight against a man like Timothy Thomas, Mrs. Williams. Why did you come to me? I reached into my purse. My hands were trembling, but I forced them to move. I pulled out the roll of cash I had scraped together from selling my jewelry and my grandmother's silver. I placed the thick roll on his scratched wooden desk. Then I pulled out the printed bank statements, the ones showing the zeros where our savings used to be. This is all I have, I said, and I was proud that my voice didn't crack. He stole everything. He stole my daughter's college fund. He is trying to take my child and tell the world I am crazy. I don't need a lawyer who does this for the money, Mr. Robinson. I need a lawyer who does this because he hates bullies like Zachary. George Robinson picked up the bank statements. He scanned them in silence, the paper crinkling in his rough hands. His thick gray eyebrows furrowed as he read the numbers. Then he picked up the cash, thumbing through the bills with a heavy sigh. He left you with nothing. Zero. And he is claiming you are unstable. He has a psychologist report from his mistress. George's head snapped up. A slow, terrifying smile spread across his weathered face. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of an old wolf who had just caught a scent on the wind. Conflict of interest, he muttered, almost to himself. Fraud. Financial abuse. He tossed the roll of cash back to me. It hit my chest and fell into my lap. Keep your money, Mrs. Williams. You will need it for groceries. Put it away. We will do this on contingency. He opened a drawer that squeaked on its tracks and pulled out a yellow legal pad. I take a percentage of what we win back. And looking at these transfers, we are going to win back a lot. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. Listen to me carefully, Kiana. This isn't a divorce anymore. This is a war. He wants to play dirty. Fine. I invented dirty. But you need to be strong. You have to go back to that house. You have to live with him. You have to let him think he is winning. Can you do that? I felt the blood drain from my face. I have to live with him? I shuddered at the thought of sleeping under the same roof as the man who was destroying me. If you leave the marital home, he can claim abandonment, George said firmly. You stay put. You let him throw his insults. You let him parade his ego around that house. And while he is busy gloating, we are going to dig. He handed me a cheap plastic pen. Now tell me everything about this Dominique Davis. I took the pen. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a client. I felt like a soldier reporting for duty. She's a corporate psychologist, I said. And she smells like sandalwood and deceit. Living in the same house with Zachary after the filing was like living in a minefield. The air was thick with tension, heavy enough to choke on. Every room felt like a battleground where a single wrong step could blow up my life. Following Mr. Robinson's advice, I moved my things into the guest room down the hall. I went to the hardware store and bought a heavy deadbolt, installing it on the door myself. Zachary, arrogant in his assumed victory, didn't kick me out. He wanted me there. He wanted an audience for his triumph. He seemed to derive a sick pleasure from watching me scrape for grocery money while he flaunted his wealth. But the worst part wasn't his cruelty toward me. It was how he used our daughter. It was how he used Taylor. 2 days after seeing George Robinson, I was in the kitchen making a simple pasta dinner. Pasta was cheap, and it was all I could afford. The front door opened, and Zachary walked in carrying a massive gift-wrapped box. Taylor, he called out, his voice booming with fake cheer. Daddy is home. Taylor ran into the kitchen, her little socks sliding on the hardwood. Daddy. He dropped the box on the table, right on top of the placemats I had just set. Open it, princess. Taylor tore open the paper with excitement. It was the Mars mission Lego robotics set. The huge one that cost nearly $400. The one she had begged for, but I had told her we had to save for Christmas. Wow. Taylor's eyes went wide as saucers. The big one. Thank you, Daddy. Zachary hugged her, looking directly at me over her small shoulder. His eyes were cold, dead things. You see, Taylor, he said, loud enough for me to hear every syllable. Daddy can buy you anything you want. Mommy can't buy this for you, can she? Mommy doesn't have a job. My grip on the wooden spoon tightened until my fingers ached and my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the pot of boiling water at him. But I heard George's voice in my head. Let him think he is winning. That is very generous of Daddy, I said, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass in my mouth. Why don't you take it to the living room, sweetie? Wait, Zachary said. I also got you something else. He pulled a sleek white box from his briefcase. An iPad Pro. The newest model. The old tablet you have is garbage, Taylor. Throw it away. This one has a better camera, faster games, everything. And I set up a special account just for you. Taylor gasped. A new iPad? Really? Really? Because when you come to live with me in the new apartment, we are going to have only the best things. No broken toys. No boring rules. Taylor looked at him, then at me. She sensed the tension. Children always do. They absorb it like little sponges. She took the iPad slowly. Thank you, Daddy. Go set it up, he urged. Taylor ran off to the living room with her treasures. Zachary turned to me, his smile vanishing instantly. Don't bother setting a plate for me, he sneered. I am eating out. The food here is pathetic lately. Going to a business meeting? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Or a therapy session? His eyes narrowed into slits. Careful, Kiana. You are skating on thin ice. He grabbed his keys and left the house. I stood in the kitchen, trembling with rage. He was buying her loyalty. He was dazzling a 7-year-old with consumerism to erase her mother. Later that night, I went to check on Taylor. The house was quiet. I opened her bedroom door softly. The glow of the nightlight illuminated her bed. I expected to see her playing with the new iPad, mesmerized by the screen, but she wasn't. The shiny new white box was sitting on her desk, unopened. Taylor was curled up under her duvet, fast asleep. But one of her hands was tucked under her pillow. I tiptoed closer. I gently lifted the corner of the pillow. My heart broke. She was clutching her old, battered tablet. The screen was cracked in a spiderweb pattern from when she dropped it on the patio last summer. The case was peeling and faded. Why was she holding on to this piece of junk when she had a brand new $2,000 device on her desk? Was it comfort? Familiarity? I reached out to gently move it so she wouldn't sleep on the hard glass. Taylor stirred. Her hand clamped down on the old tablet instantly, pulling it deeper under the covers. No, she mumbled in her sleep. Mine. I pulled my hand back. It's okay, baby. It's mommy. Go back to sleep. She settled down, but her grip didn't loosen. I kissed her forehead and left the room, completely confused. Taylor loved new gadgets. Why was she rejecting the new iPad? I chalked it up to the stress of the divorce. Maybe she felt that accepting the new gift was betraying me. The thought made me want to cry. I was dragging my daughter into a war she didn't understand. But I was wrong. Taylor understood far more than I did. And that old broken tablet wasn't just a toy. It was a weapon. I just didn't know it yet. The following Friday, George Robinson called me with urgent instructions. I need you out of the house for a few hours tonight, Kiana. He said. I have a private investigator watching the property. We suspect Zachary brings her there when he thinks you are gone. You want me to leave them alone in my house? I felt nauseous at the thought of that woman in my sanctuary. We need proof of adultery in the marital home. It avoids certain clauses in the prenup he is trying to enforce. Go to a movie. Take a long drive. Just be gone from 7 to 10. What about Taylor? He thinks Taylor is at a sleepover, right? You told me she was going to her cousin's. Yes, I said. I dropped her off an hour ago. Good. Then go. I did as I was told. I sat in a dark movie theater watching a comedy I couldn't laugh at, checking my phone every 5 minutes. The screen was a blur. At 9:30, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove back. I parked down the street, lights off, waiting for the text from the PI saying the coast was clear. But as I sat there in the dark, my phone buzzed. It wasn't the PI. It was my sister calling from the landline at her house. Kiana? She sounded panicked. Her voice was high and tight. Did you pick up Taylor? What? No. She is at your house. She's not, my sister said, and I could hear her crying. We were playing hide and seek in the backyard. I went inside to get juice and when I came back, she was gone. Her backpack is gone. I thought maybe you came and got her early. Ice water flooded my veins. My heart stopped beating. I didn't pick her up. Oh my God. I am looking everywhere. Kiana, I am calling the neighbors. I hung up and started the car. Panic, raw and blinding, took over my entire body. Where would she go? She was 7 years old. Then it hit me. Taylor had been acting strange about protecting her things. She had been worried about her Lego set. She walked home. My sister lived only 4 blocks away through a wooded path Taylor knew well. I sped toward my house, tires screeching. If Taylor walked home and Zachary was there with her, what would happen? I pulled into the driveway. Zachary's car was there. And another car. A sleek silver Mercedes convertible. Her car. I didn't wait for the PI. I ran to the front door. It was locked. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking so hard I dropped them on the porch. I scrambled to pick them up, jamming the key into the lock. Inside the house, the scene was calm. Too calm. Soft jazz music was playing. I smelled that sandalwood perfume again, thick and cloying, suffocating the air. Zachary! I screamed, bursting into the foyer. Zachary appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing his silk robe. His face went pale when he saw me. Kiana, you are supposed to be out until midnight. Where is she? I yelled, running past him. Where is Taylor? Taylor? She is at your sister's house. She ran away. She is not there. Just then, the door to the living room closet creaked open. We both froze. Taylor stepped out. She was still wearing her coat and backpack. She looked terrified, her eyes darting between me and her father. Taylor. I dropped to my knees and pulled her into a hug, burying my face in her neck. Oh my God, you scared me to death. Why did you leave Auntie's house? I forgot my tablet, she whispered, clutching her backpack straps. The old one. I needed it. Zachary came down the stairs, his eyes narrowing. You walked home alone in the dark for a broken piece of junk? Then a voice drifted from the kitchen. A woman's voice. Smooth, confident, and annoyed. Zachary, darling, is the wife back early? We haven't finished our wine. Dominique Davis walked into the hallway. I looked up. It was the first time I saw her in the flesh. She was stunning. Tall, blonde, wearing a cashmere dress that probably cost more than my car. But her eyes were cold. Calculation flickered in them as she looked at me, then down at Taylor. So, this is the child, Dominique said, looking at Taylor like she was a specimen in a jar. She looks disheveled. Get out, I snarled, standing up and shielding Taylor with my body. Get out of my house. Zachary stepped between us. This is my house, Kiana. Dominique is my guest. And you? He glared at Taylor. You are in big trouble, young lady. Sneaking around. Spying? I wasn't spying. Taylor cried, her voice shrinking. I just wanted my tablet. Go to your room, Zachary ordered. Now. Taylor ran up the stairs, sobbing. I turned to Zachary and Dominique. I was shaking with rage so intense I could barely see. You brought her here while you thought our daughter was away. You are disgusting. Dominique laughed softly. She walked up to me, invading my personal space. She smelled expensive and toxic. Don't be dramatic, Kiana, she said. Her voice was the one from my nightmares. I am just inspecting my future home. It needs a lot of work. The decor is so outdated. She smirked and turned to Zachary. Call me when you have handled the help, darling. She walked out the front door without looking back. I looked at Zachary. He didn't look ashamed. He looked annoyed that his evening was ruined. You are going to lose her, Zachary, I whispered. You are going to lose Taylor. I am not losing anything, he hissed. But you just proved you can't even keep track of your child for one evening. Neglect. Add that to the file. He stormed upstairs. I collapsed on the stairs, burying my face in my hands. He was twisting everything. Even Taylor running away because she missed her home was being twisted into my negligence. I didn't know then that Taylor hadn't just come back for the tablet. And she hadn't just been hiding in the closet for a moment. She had been there for 10 minutes before we arrived. Long enough to see things. Long enough to hear things. The week before the trial, George Robinson called me into his office. The air in the room was heavy, oppressive. He had a thick document on his desk. "It is here," he said grimly. "The psychological evaluation." My stomach dropped to the floor. "But I never met with a psychologist. How can there be an evaluation?" "That is what I said. But Dr. Davis is creative." He slid the report across the desk. The cover sheet read, "Psychological Assessment of Competency, Kiana Williams. Prepared by Dr. Dominique Davis, Ph.D., licensed clinical psychologist." I opened it. My hand shook as I read the first paragraph. "Subject displays classic symptoms of borderline personality disorder characterized by severe emotional instability, erratic behavior, and an inability to prioritize the child's safety." "This is a lie," I whispered. "Borderline? I have never been diagnosed with anything." "Keep reading," George said. I turned the page. It was a list of observed incidents. Incident 1, subject was observed in the city center mall violently grabbing the child by the arm and screaming aggressively. The child appeared terrified and was crying. "That was the escalator," I cried out. "She tripped. I caught her so she wouldn't fall. She was crying because she scraped her knee. I saved her." Incident 2, subject was observed in the park appearing disoriented and manic, crying uncontrollably while the child played unattended nearby. "That was the day my mother died," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I got the call while I was at the park. I sat on the bench and cried for 10 minutes. Taylor was playing in the sandbox 5 feet away. I wasn't manic. I was grieving." "She is twisting everything," George said, slamming his fist on the desk. "She is taking real moments from your life and rewriting the context to make you look insane. It is called gaslighting by proxy." "But how does she know these things?" I asked. "She wasn't there." "Zachary," George said. "Zachary told her. Or," he paused, looking me dead in the eye, "or she was stalking you." A chill went through me. The woman I saw in my hallway, the woman who looked at my daughter like a bug, had been watching us. "There is more," George said. "Look at the recommendation." I flipped to the last page. Conclusion: It is my professional opinion that Kiana Williams poses a significant psychological risk to the development of Taylor Williams. I strongly recommend full legal and physical custody be awarded to the father, Zachary Wilson, with supervised visitation only for the mother pending psychiatric intervention. Supervised visitation? I choked on the words. Like a criminal? I can't be alone with my own daughter? "That is what they want," George said. "They want to erase you, Kiana. If the judge believes this report, and Dr. Davis has a lot of credentials, you lose." "Can't we simply prove that she is biased?" I asked, my voice thick with desperation. "She is sleeping with him, George. She is his mistress. We know that for a fact." George Robinson sighed and rubbed his temples, looking older than I had ever seen him. "But proving it in family court is harder than you think, Kiana. Unless we have photos of them in bed together or a paper trail showing he paid her off for this specific report, it is just your word against a respected doctor. And right now, according to this file, your word is considered unstable. I stared down at the signature at the bottom of the page. Dominique Davis. The loops of her handwriting looked sharp and aggressive like barbed wire. "She is not a doctor," I said, feeling a cold hardness settle in my chest. "She is a hitman." "We have one chance," George said, leaning forward. "Cross-examination. I have to tear her apart on the stand. I have to make her slip up and reveal her true colors. But you, Kiana, you have to be made of stone. Zachary's lawyer, Timothy Thomas, is going to use this report to bait you. He will say horrible things to you in open court just to make you scream or make you cry. If you shed one single tear, you prove Dr. Davis right." "I won't cry," I said, even though I was crying right then and there. "You have to be perfect," George warned me, his eyes intense. "Because if you crack even for a second, Taylor goes to Switzerland." I drove home in a daze. The world outside my windshield felt like it was closing in on me, crushing my lungs. I looked over at the passenger seat where Taylor usually sat. Her pink booster seat looked so empty and small. Switzerland. They were plotting to take my baby to another continent entirely. I got home and walked into the kitchen. The house felt cold. Zachary was there leaning against the island drinking a glass of expensive red wine. He looked at my tear-stained face and smirked. "Read the report, did you?" he asked, swirling the liquid in his glass. I didn't answer him. I just walked past him towards the hallway. "She is very thorough, isn't she?" he called after me, his voice dripping with mock politeness. "Dominique really captured the real you, Kiana." I stopped dead in my tracks. I turned slowly to face him. "You are going to hell, Zachary," I said quietly. Maybe he laughed, taking a sip. "But I will be in hell with the house, the money, and the kid. And you? You will just be a lonely crazy cat lady." I went to my room and locked the door behind me. My hands were shaking so bad I had to sit down. I pulled out my old drafting compass from my college days. I held the sharp metal point in my palm, letting the slight pain ground me. "I will not crack," I told myself over and over again like a mantra. "I will not crack." But I didn't know that the next day in that courtroom they had a weapon I wasn't prepared for. And I was about to walk right into the trap. After reading that psychological report, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was a cold, calculating anger. If Dr. Dominique Davis wanted to write a fiction story about my life, I needed to know exactly who was holding the pen. The clue came from the most innocent source imaginable. The next evening I was giving Taylor a bath. It was one of the few times Zachary couldn't interrupt us. As I was washing her hair, Taylor was playing with her rubber ducks, splashing the water and making happy little noises. "Mommy," she said, wiping bubbles from her nose. "Why does Auntie D always smell like fancy wood?" My hands froze in her soapy hair. "Auntie D?" "Yeah, the lady Daddy talks to," Taylor chirped innocently. "Even when she is not there, Daddy smells like her. It smells like the candle store at the mall, but stronger. Santal 33. Sandalwood and cedar." That was the scent on Zachary's shirts. That was the scent that lingered in my hallway the night Taylor ran away. "Does Auntie D come around a lot when I am not there?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light and playful so I wouldn't scare her. Taylor nodded vigorously. "Sometimes Daddy says she is helping him with work, but they don't do work. They drink wine and laugh, and she sits on his lap." A wave of nausea hit me so hard I almost gagged. He was bringing her into our home, into the sanctuary I had built for 15 years. That night, after putting Taylor to bed and reading her a story, I went to my room and opened my laptop. I didn't have money for a private investigator anymore, but I had something better. The instincts of a woman who had been lied to. I searched for Dr. Dominique Davis again. Her professional website was pristine, listing an Ivy League education and a specialization in corporate psychology and high-conflict family dynamics. But everyone has a digital footprint. I searched Instagram. Her main account was private, of course. But then I remembered Octavia Brown, Zachary's former executive assistant who had been fired. She had mentioned once that Dominique was a consultant for the firm. I searched for the firm's tagged photos, and there it was. A photo from the company's Christmas party last year. I hadn't been invited. Zachary said it was employees only. But there in the background of a group selfie posted by a junior analyst were Zachary and Dominique. She was wearing a red dress that clung to her like a second skin. Her hand was resting possessively on Zachary's chest. They were looking at each other in a way that wasn't professional. It was hungry. I clicked on the tag on her dress. It led to a public fashion account she ran on the side called Davis Designs. I scrolled down and my heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. October 12th. A photo of a diamond bracelet on a delicate wrist. The caption read, "From my favorite client, he knows how to treat a woman." I checked my credit card statements from part of the joint account I still had access to. October 12, Tiffany and Company $4,500. I kept scrolling. November 5. A selfie in a plush hotel robe holding a glass of champagne. The location tag was the Four Seasons Chicago. My statement showed the Four Seasons $2,800. December 20th. A photo of a brand new Hermes handbag. Caption read ready to secure the bag 2024 is going to be my year of abundance. My statement showed Saks Fifth Avenue $1,200. She wasn't just his mistress. She was living a life of luxury funded by my daughter's college fund. She was wearing my financial security on her wrist. I took screenshots of everything, every caption, every date match. But the most chilling post was from 3 days ago. It was a picture of a passport and a plane ticket. The destination was obscured, but the caption read "New life loading, just one more hurdle to clear before paradise." The hurdle was me. I realized then that Zachary wasn't just trying to win a divorce. He was trying to erase me so they could run away with the money and my daughter. I printed the photos immediately. The ink was running low, so the pictures came out streaky, making Dominique look even more like a distorted monster. I put them in a folder marked evidence. I looked at her face in the photo, smug, beautiful, and untouchable. She thought she was the hunter. She didn't realize that by posting her trophies she had just handed the prey a loaded gun. Mediation is supposed to be a civilized way to settle disputes. But when you are divorcing a narcissist, there is no civilization. There is only psychological warfare. We met in a conference room at the courthouse the following morning. The table was long and polished to a mirror shine. On one side sat Zachary and his shark of a lawyer, Mr. Timothy Thomas. On the other side sat me and George. George looked like a rumpled history professor in his cardigan next to Timothy's sleek predatory Italian suit. But I felt safer next to George than I ever had next to Zachary. The mediator, a tired-looking woman named Brenda, opened the file. "The goal today is to find common ground," she said without much hope. "There is no common ground," Timothy cut in smoothly. "My client's position is clear. Mr. Wilson is the sole breadwinner. Mrs. Williams has been unemployed for 15 years. Furthermore, given Mrs. Williams's recent instability, we believe full custody is the only safe option for the child. We reject that entirely." George grumbled, his voice gravelly. "Mrs. Williams raised that child while your client was busy working in Chicago hotel rooms." Zachary laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. He leaned back in his chair, twirling a pen. "You really want to do this, Kiana?" he asked. "You want to drag this out? Look at you. You were wearing a coat from 3 seasons ago. You sold your grandmother's necklace just to pay this old man. You are pathetic." "Zachary," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I don't care about the money. You can keep the cars. You can keep the stocks. Just give me joint custody. Let me be a mother to Taylor." Zachary stopped twirling the pen. He leaned forward, his eyes dead and cold. "No." "Why?" I pleaded. "She is my daughter." "Because you are a bad influence," Zachary said. "You are weak. You are emotional. Taylor needs to be molded for success. And frankly, Kiana, I am moving." My breath caught in my throat. "Moving? Moving where?" Zachary smirked. "Zurich, Switzerland. My firm is transferring me, and since I will have full custody, Taylor is coming with me. We leave the day after the trial judgment." "You can't do that." I stood up, knocking my chair back. "You can't take her to another country. I will never see her." "You can visit," Timothy said dismissively. "Once a year, supervised. If you can afford the plane ticket, which, let's be honest, you won't be able to." "This is kidnapping," I screamed. "This is legal strategy," Zachary whispered loud enough only for me to hear. "And you have no way to stop it. Sign the papers, Kiana. If you sign now, I will give you enough cash to rent a decent apartment." If you fight me in court next week, I will leave you homeless and Taylor will grow up in Europe forgetting she ever had a mother named Kiana. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had shared a bed with for 15 years. I realized there was no humanity left in him. He was a machine fueled by greed and ego. George placed a hand on my arm. Sit down, Kiana. I won't sign, I said, staring directly into Zachary's eyes. I would rather live in a cardboard box than sell my daughter to you. Zachary checked his Rolex. Have it your way. See you in court. Make sure you wear something nice. I would hate for you to look poor and crazy on the news. He stood up and walked out. Timothy followed. I collapsed into the chair, feeling the room spin. Switzerland, George. Can he really do that if he gets full custody? Yes, George said grimly. He has the money to expedite passports. He has the job transfer papers. It is a valid reason to relocate. So if I lose the trial next week, I lose her forever. Then we have to make sure you don't lose, George said. But for the first time I saw doubt in his eyes. I walked out of that room feeling like I was carrying the weight of the world. Switzerland. It was a death sentence for my motherhood. I had 7 days. 7 days to stop a millionaire, a high-powered lawyer, and a corrupt psychologist from stealing my life. The courtroom was freezing. I don't know if it was the temperature or just the sheer terror running through my veins, but I couldn't stop shivering. Day 1 of Wilson versus Williams began with a bang, or rather a slaughter. The gallery was surprisingly full. Zachary was a prominent figure in the local finance world, and the idea of a scandalous divorce had drawn curious onlookers. I saw some of the women I used to play tennis with, women who had stopped returning my calls months ago. They whispered behind their hands, looking at my simple black dress and tired eyes. Timothy Thomas, Zachary's lawyer, stood up. He looked like a shark in a suit. Sleek and dangerous. Your Honor, Timothy began, his voice booming. We are here today to save a child. To save Taylor Wilson from a toxic environment created by a mother who has lost her grip on reality. He didn't waste time. He called his first witness, our housekeeper Maria. I gasped. Maria had been with us for 5 years. I treated her like family. I gave her bonuses from my own allowance. Maria sat in the stand, refusing to look at me. Maria, Timothy asked softly. Describe the state of the Wilson household over the last 6 months. It was messy, Maria mumbled, looking at her lap. Mrs. Williams stopped cleaning. There were dishes everywhere. Laundry piled up. She would stay in bed until noon. Objection, George croaked. Context. Mrs. Williams had severe influenza during that period. Overruled, the judge said, scribbling notes. The witness is describing what she saw. And did Mrs. Williams ever forget to pick up the child from school? Timothy asked. Once, Maria whispered. Last month. I was in the ER, I whispered frantically to George. I had a migraine so bad I couldn't see. I called the school. Hush, George hissed. Let them talk. Next came the financial forensic accountant hired by Zachary. He put up charts on a screen. As you can see, Your Honor, Mrs. Williams's spending habits are erratic. Thousands of dollars withdrawn in cash. No receipts. This suggests either a gambling addiction or a hidden substance abuse problem. My jaw dropped. Those were the cash withdrawals Zachary forced me to make because he cut off my cards. He told me to use cash for groceries, but to the judge it just looked like numbers on a screen. Numbers that painted me as irresponsible and secretive. Zachary sat at the plaintiff's table, his face a mask of sorrowful concern. He shook his head sadly every time a new fact was revealed, as if to say, see what I have had to put up with. By the time lunch recess was called, I felt stripped naked. They had twisted my illness into laziness. They had twisted my financial abuse into addiction. I sat on a bench in the hallway eating a stale sandwich George had brought me. They are winning, I said, my voice hollow. The judge hates me. Did you see the way he looked at me when they showed the photos of the dirty kitchen? It is a show, Kiana George said, though he looked worried. They are throwing mud. Our turn comes when we cross-examine. We have to wait for the big gun. The big gun. Dr. Davis. George nodded. She is scheduled for tomorrow morning. She is the linchpin. If her testimony stands, the judge grants custody to Zachary. If we can discredit her, the whole house of cards falls. But how, I asked. Octavia won't testify. We only have Instagram screenshots. The judge might not even admit them. I am working on it, George said, but he didn't sound confident. As we walked back into the courtroom, I saw Zachary standing near the water fountain. He was talking to Timothy, laughing a genuine belly laugh. He saw me and winked. It wasn't a flirtatious wink. It was the wink of a hunter who has the deer in his sights and is just waiting to pull the trigger. I walked back to my seat, my legs feeling like lead. I looked at the empty witness stand. Tomorrow the woman who was sleeping with my husband was going to sit there and tell the world I was crazy. And the terrifying truth was, after today I was starting to feel like maybe they were right. Maybe I was crazy to think I could win. The next morning the heavy wooden door swung open and she walked in. A hush fell over the room. It wasn't just because she was the expert witness. It was because she commanded attention. Dr. Dominique Davis was radiant. She wore a cream-colored pencil skirt suit that looked professional yet undeniably expensive. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon. She carried a leather portfolio with the air of a woman who held the 10 Commandments inside. I stopped breathing. It was her, the woman from the hallway, the woman from the Instagram photos. Seeing her up there in that court of law swearing on a Bible to tell the truth made the blood freeze in my veins. She took the stand like she owned it. She adjusted the microphone with a perfectly manicured hand, and the fluorescent lights above caught the sparkle of a diamond bracelet from Tiffany's. That bracelet cost $5,000. I knew because it was the exact amount missing from the savings account we had set aside for Taylor's college fund. Mr. Timothy Thomas, my husband's shark of a lawyer, began his questioning with a voice dripping in exaggerated respect. Dr. Davis, please state your credentials for the court. Dominique smoothed her skirt. I hold a PhD in clinical psychology from Yale, she said, her voice smooth like warm velvet. I have 15 years of experience dealing with high-conflict family dynamics and child development. I run Davis Consulting, a firm dedicated to family wellness. And you were retained to evaluate the Wilson family. I was. What were your findings regarding Mrs. Kiana Williams? Dominique turned her head for a split second. Her eyes locked with mine across the aisle. There was no pity in them. There was no guilt. There was only a cold and predatory amusement. My findings were deeply disturbing, she said, turning back to the judge with a look of practiced concern. Mrs. Williams exhibits classic signs of borderline personality disorder with narcissistic tendencies. She creates chaos to garner attention. She is emotionally volatile. During my observations, I noted that she projects her own insecurities onto the child, creating a toxic dependency. Can you give an example? Certainly. I observed an incident at the city park. Mrs. Williams was on a bench crying hysterically, completely ignoring her daughter who was wandering dangerously close to the street. It was only when a stranger intervened that Mrs. Williams reacted, and her reaction was aggression toward the stranger, not concern for the child. Liar. I shouted it before I could stop myself. The word tore out of my throat. That never happened. I was crying because my mother had just died. Order. The judge banged his gavel so hard it made me jump. Mrs. Williams. One more outburst and I will have you removed from this courtroom. You see, Your Honor, Dominique said softly, nodding with fake sadness. The lack of impulse control. The outbursts. This is exactly what the child is subjected to daily. I clamped my hand over my mouth. I felt sick. I had just played right into her hands. As she continued to spew her lies, a scent wafted through the air. The ventilation system in the old courtroom must have kicked on, carrying the air from the witness stand directly toward our table. It was a mix of sandalwood, cedar, and jasmine. It was unmistakable. It was the custom cologne my husband wore. It was the smell of the betrayal that had rotted my marriage from the inside out. I grabbed my lawyer's arm. "George, it is her," I hissed, my voice trembling. "The perfume. It is the same scent. She is not just lying, Mr. Robinson. She is wearing the bracelet he bought her. Look at her wrist." George Robinson squinted through his thick glasses. "We cannot prove who bought the bracelet, Kiana. But we know." I felt like I was drowning in dry air. "She is sitting there judging me while she is sleeping with the plaintiff. This is insane." "I know," George whispered back, patting my hand with his papery skin. "But the judge sees a PhD from Yale. He sees a calm professional and he sees you screaming." Timothy Thomas finished his questioning with a smug smile. "Thank you, Dr. Davis. Your testimony has been illuminating." "Your witness," the judge said to George. My lawyer stood up slowly. He walked toward the stand, his old back hunched over. He looked like a tired old dog barking at a pristine marble statue. "Dr. Davis," he rasped. "You say you observed Mrs. Williams. Did you ever formally interview her?" "I attempted to," Dominique lied smoothly. "But Mrs. Williams was uncooperative and hostile. Therefore, I relied on behavioral observation, which is standard practice in cases where the subject is resistant." "Resistant," George scoffed. "Or unaware. Did you ever disclose to Mrs. Williams that you were observing her? It would have altered the behavior." Dominique smiled like she was explaining physics to a toddler. "Naturalistic observation is key." "And your relationship with Mr. Wilson?" George asked sharply. "Is it strictly professional?" The room went quiet. Zachary stiffened in his seat. Dominique did not blink. Mr. Wilson retained my firm. We have a professional consultant-client relationship. Nothing more really. George pulled out the grainy black and white printout of the Instagram photo I had found. "Because this photo from a holiday party seems to show a rather close professional relationship." Dominique glanced at the photo and let out a light, tinkling laugh. "Oh, counselor. That was a company party. Everyone was dancing. If standing next to a client is a crime, then half this courtroom is guilty." The judge looked at the photo. It was grainy. It was ambiguous. "Mr. Robinson," the judge warned. "Unless you have proof of impropriety, move on. Do not waste the court's time with gossip." George looked defeated. He dropped the photo back onto the table. No further questions. I sank into my chair. She had gotten away with it. She had lied under oath and she had done it with a smile. The respondent calls Kiana Williams to the stand. Hearing my name called felt like a summons to the gallows. I stood up and my legs were trembling so badly I had to grip the table to steady myself. I walked to the witness box, placing my hand on the Bible. It felt heavy with irony in a room full of liars. George asked me gentle questions first. I tried to explain about the bank accounts and the joint savings being drained. I tried to explain about my mother's death and having the flu that day at the park. I spoke clearly, trying to channel the architect I used to be. Logical. Precise. But then it was Timothy Thomas's turn. He did not walk to the podium. He walked right up to the witness box, invading my personal space just like Zachary used to do. "Mrs. Williams," he began, his voice sickly sweet. "You claim you are a devoted mother yet you have no income. You have no savings. You rely entirely on your husband's generosity. Is that not correct?" "It was a partnership," I said, my voice tightening. "I managed the home." Managed. Timothy raised an eyebrow. We saw the photos of the kitchen. Is that your definition of management? I felt bile rise in my throat. Excuses. Timothy snapped. Always excuses. Let us talk about Taylor. Your husband says you are emotionally suffocating her. That you tell her she cannot trust her father. That is a lie. I want her to love her father, but he is buying her love with gifts. Or maybe, Timothy leaned in close, he is providing for her while you are just there existing as a burden. I gripped the railing until my knuckles turned white. I am not a burden. Aren't you? Timothy turned to the gallery, then back to me. Your husband is a successful man. Dr. Davis is a successful woman. They are winners. And you, Kiana, look at you. You are just bitter because you could not keep up. I gave up my career for him. You gave it up because you could not hack it, Timothy said coldly. Zachary told me. He said you were a mediocre architect at best. He said he married you out of pity. It was a lie. I knew it was a lie. I was top of my class. But hearing that Zachary had been mocking me to his lawyer and to Dominique and to everyone, it cracked something inside me. That is not true. I raised my voice. And now, Timothy continued, ignoring me completely. You want to drag Taylor down with you. You want to make her mediocre too. You want to keep her in this small town and a small life instead of letting her go to Zurich where she can flourish. She is 7 years old. I screamed. She needs her mother. She needs a stable mother. Timothy shouted back, his face inches from mine. Not a woman who screams. Not a woman who falls apart. Look at this. He slammed a large photograph onto the railing in front of me. It was a picture of me in my bedroom. My hair was wild. My eyes were swollen shut and my mouth was open in a scream of pure anguish. It was taken the night Zachary told me he was leaving. The night he shoved me. The night I thought my life was over. I was not crazy. I was heartbroken. But in that photo, frozen in time, I looked like a monster. Is this the face of a sane woman? Timothy bellowed to the courtroom. Is this the face you want putting your child to bed? He took that after he pushed me. I wailed, standing up. He provoked me. He smiled while I cried. He is the monster. Can't you see? He is stealing my life. I was pointing at Zachary. My hand was shaking violently. I was crying ugly heaving sobs. Your Honor. Timothy turned to the judge, spreading his arms wide. I rest my case. The witness has proven Dr. Davis's diagnosis perfectly. Volatile. Hysterical. Unfit. I froze. I looked at the judge. He was not looking at the photo. He was looking at me. And in his eyes I saw pity and dismissal. I looked at Zachary. He was covering his mouth with his hand, looking down at the table. It looked like he was ashamed of me, but I knew better. I knew he was hiding a smile. Order, the judge said quietly. Witness, sit down. Compose yourself. I sank back into the chair. The fight drained out of me. I had done exactly what they wanted. I had screamed. I had cried. I had proven them right. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning for final statements and sentencing. The judge said. Bailiff, clear the room. I walked back to George Robinson. He did not say anything. He just packed his briefcase slowly. It is over, isn't it? I whispered. We need a miracle, Kiana, he said softly. A bona fide miracle. That night the house felt like a mausoleum. Zachary had not come home. He was probably out celebrating his victory with Dominique. I walked into Taylor's room. She was sitting on the floor surrounded by her stuffed animals. She looked up when I entered, her big eyes filled with a question she was too scared to ask. Mama. Hey baby. I sat down next to her. I tried to smile but I knew it did not reach my eyes. Are we going to court tomorrow? She asked. I am, I said, stroking her hair. You are going to school. Auntie Octavia is going to pick you up afterwards. Is Daddy going to win? The question hung in the air heavy and suffocating. I could not lie to her. I had never lied to her. I don't know Taylor. Daddy has a lot of lawyers. If he wins, do I have to go to Switzerland? She struggled with the word. Switzerland, I corrected gently, my heart shattering into a million pieces. If the judge says so, yes. But Daddy loves you. He wants you to see the world. But I don't want to see the world, Taylor whispered, tears spilling onto her cheeks. I want to see you. I pulled her into my arms. I buried my face in her neck, smelling her strawberry shampoo. Envy her innocence. This might be the last time I held her like this. Tomorrow she might belong to the state or to Zachary. Tomorrow I might be just the supervised visitation mother. Listen to me, Taylor, I said fiercely, pulling back to look at her. No matter what happens tomorrow. No matter where you go. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are smart. You are kind. And you are strong. Do you hear me? You are so much stronger than you know. Taylor sniffled. She looked at her backpack sitting by the door. I know, Mommy, she said. Her voice sounded strange. Determined. Adults think kids don't know things. But we do. What do you mean? She did not answer. She just crawled over to her backpack and checked the front pocket. I saw the corner of the broken tablet sticking out. Taylor, why are you bringing that old thing to school? The screen is glass shards. You could cut yourself. It is taped up, she said. And I need it for show and tell. Show and tell isn't until Friday. It is for a special project, she said evasively. I was too exhausted to argue. If holding on to a broken toy gave her comfort, I would let her have it. I tucked her in. I stayed there until she fell asleep, watching her chest rise and fall. I memorized the curve of her eyelashes. I memorized the way her hand curled under her chin. I went to my room, but I did not sleep. I sat by the window watching the moon rise over the suburban street that had been my prison and my sanctuary. I felt a hollowness inside me so deep it echoed. I thought about all the women out there who had lost. The women who were outsmarted by men with more money and fewer morals. I felt their pain mixing with mine. And this is where I need you to pause with me for a second. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand in that dark room. I know that somewhere out there you are listening to this, and maybe you know this pain. Maybe you have felt helpless. If you are still here with me listening to my story, please help me by liking this video and commenting the number 1 below. It tells me that you are amazing, and it tells me that I am not alone in this journey. Your support is the invisible thread holding me together right now. Please comment 1 so I can see you. And now let me tell you about the day the world stopped turning. The final day of the trial. Judgment Day. The courtroom was packed. Zachary had brought his parents. They sat in the front row looking at me with disdain. Dominique was there too, sitting right behind Zachary, wearing a modest blue dress today and playing the role of the supportive consultant perfectly. The judge entered. We all stood. Be seated, he said. He did not look happy. He shuffled his papers. I have reviewed the evidence. I have reviewed the testimony of the expert witness Dr. Davis. I have reviewed the financial records. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. This is a difficult case. However, the court's primary duty is the safety and stability of the minor child. The evidence presented regarding Mrs. Williams' emotional volatility is compelling. My heart stopped beating. He was going to do it. Furthermore, the judge continued, Mr. Wilson has presented a viable plan for relocation that offers the child significant educational advantages in Europe. Therefore, it is the ruling of this court that the heavy double doors at the back of the courtroom groaned open. It was a loud jarring sound in the silent room. Everyone turned. A bailiff stood there looking confused, and ducking under his arm was a small figure in a pink puffer coat. Taylor. My friend Octavia, who was supposed to be picking her up from school, was running up behind her looking frantic. Taylor, stop. You cannot go in there. Taylor. I gasped, half rising from my seat. Zachary stood up. What is the meaning of this? Why is my daughter here? Get her out. Timothy Thomas shouted. This is a closed session. But Taylor did not stop. She walked right down the center aisle. She looked tiny in the massive room, but she walked with a determination that made her look 10 feet tall. She was not looking at me. She was not looking at Zachary. She was looking directly at the judge. Young lady, the judge said, his voice stern but surprised. You cannot be in here. Taylor stopped at the gate that separated the gallery from the court floor. She gripped the wooden railing. Are you the boss? Taylor asked, her voice trembling but clear. The judge blinked. I am the judge. Yes. My daddy said you were going to make me go away. Taylor said. He said you were going to make me live with him and Auntie Dominique. Taylor stopped this instant. Zachary yelled, his face turning a shade of crimson that clashed violently with his expensive suit. Octavia, get her out of here immediately. No, Taylor shouted back, spinning on her heels to face her father. I will not go. You are a liar. The entire courtroom gasped. The sound sucked the air right out of the room. Young lady, the judge said, his voice firm but not unkind, we do not yell in my courtroom. Taylor turned back to the judge. Trembling but resolute, she reached into her glittery pink backpack, and my heart hammered against my ribs. Was she pulling out a toy, drawing a snack? Why was she doing this? She pulled out her tablet. It was the broken one, the old model with the screen that was taped up with clear packing tape holding the shards of glass together. Daddy said Mommy is crazy, Taylor said, her voice wavering as tears began to stream down her cheeks. Daddy said Mommy is bad, but Daddy lies, and Miss Dominique lies too, and I have proof. The judge leaned forward, his black robe rustling over the bench. Taylor put that away. Zachary lunged toward the little wooden gate separating the gallery from the well of the court, but the bailiff stepped squarely in his path. Sit down, Mr. Wilson, the bailiff ordered, his hand hovering near his belt. Your Honor, this is ridiculous, Timothy Thomas sputtered, standing up and buttoning his jacket nervously. This is a child. She has obviously been coached by the mother to create a spectacle. I was not coached, Taylor yelled, her little voice echoing off the high ceilings. Mommy does not know. Mommy thinks it is broken. She held the tablet up like a shield, defending herself against the giants in the room. Can I show you? Taylor asked the judge. Please, Your Honor, before you send me away to Europe. The judge looked at Zachary, who was sweating profusely now, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. He looked at me sitting there in shock, frozen in my chair, and he looked at the little 7-year-old girl holding a piece of shattered glass and plastic. Bailiff, the judge said slowly, take the device from the child, connect it to the court display. Objection, Timothy screamed, almost losing his composure entirely. We do not know the provenance of this digital evidence. Overruled, the judge said, his eyes narrowing into dangerous slits. It is in the best interest of the child. I want to see what she thinks is so important. The room went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. The bailiff took the tablet gently from Taylor's hands. He walked over to the AV station and plugged a cable into the side of the device. The large monitors mounted on the mahogany walls flickered to life, static dancing for a moment before the picture clarified. Zachary sank into his chair. He put his head in his hands, avoiding the screens entirely, and then the video began to play. The screen was black for a second, adjusting to the light. Then an image appeared. The angle was low, shooting upward from floor level, partially obscured by wide green leaves. It was the view from behind the large ficus plant in the corner of our living room. The timestamp in the corner read November 12, 8:45 p.m. That was the night Taylor supposedly ran away, the night I was at the movies trying to clear my head. In the video, Zachary walked into the frame. He was wearing his silk robe, holding a glass of red wine, swirling it arrogantly. God, she is so pathetic, Zachary said, his voice crystal clear through the high-quality court speakers. Did you see her face when I Told her I was taking the kid. Another figure walked into the frame. Dominique. She was not wearing the severe professional suit she wore in court today. She was wearing my robe. She was wearing the silk robe Zachary gave me for our anniversary 3 years ago. You are too hard on her, darling, Dominique purred, taking the wine glass from his hand. She laughed, a cruel hollow sound. Just kidding, she is a total doormat. Honestly, I do not know how you stayed with her for 15 years. She is so beige. I stayed for the image, Zachary said, pulling Dominique onto his lap on my sofa, but the image is expensive, and now that the assets are moved, I do not need the image anymore. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom gallery. I covered my mouth with both hands, trying to stifle a sob. My tears flowed freely, now hot and stinging. Seeing them, hearing them in my own home was 1,000 times worse than imagining it on the screen. Dominique kissed his neck. Are you sure the transfer to the Cayman account cleared? I tried to access the funds for the contractor in Zurich and it was pending. It cleared this morning, Zachary said smugly. $2 million, completely untraceable. Kiana will get half of the house equity, which is nothing after the second mortgage, and I walk away with the cash kingdom and the kid, Dominique asked, tracing his jawline with a manicured finger. Do we really have to take her? She is annoying, Zachary. She stares at me. We have to take her, Zachary replied, taking the wine back. If I leave her with Kiana, the court might force me to pay child support. Massive child support based on my real income. If I have full custody, I pay zero, plus it kills Kiana. That is the cherry on top. You are evil, Dominique giggled, nuzzling into him. I love it. I am not evil, Zachary smirked. I am just a winner in the courtroom. Present day. Zachary was not moving. He was frozen, staring at the table like he wanted to dissolve into the wood. Timothy, his lawyer, was frantically shuffling papers, looking like he wanted to crawl under the floorboards. But the video was not over yet. If you are feeling the rage bubbling up inside you right now, seeing this injustice unfold, you are not alone. My blood was boiling in my veins watching this betrayal. If you are ready to see these two get exactly what they deserve, hit that like button right now. Let us watch karma strike together. The video continued. The couple on the screen settled deeper into the sofa, completely unaware that a 7-year-old was recording their destruction from 5 feet away. What about the psych report? Zachary asked. In the video, is it ready? Dominique took a sip of wine. I drafted it this morning. It is a masterpiece of fiction, if I do say so myself. Did you include the thing about the park? Oh, absolutely, Dominique said. I took that story you told me about her crying when her mom died and I twisted it beautifully. Manic episode in public child endangerment. The judge will eat it up. And the diagnosis, borderline personality disorder, Dominique declared proudly. It is the perfect diagnosis for a difficult ex-wife. It explains the anger, the tears, the victimhood. It makes everything she says sound like a symptom, not a fact. You are a genius. Zachary kissed her. But what if the judge asks for a second opinion? He will not, Dominique said confidently. I have the credentials, plus Timothy is going to provoke her in court. Remember the plan. Use the photo, the one I took when I shoved her. Yes, Timothy will show it to her. He will call her crazy. She will scream. She will cry, and boom, diagnosis confirmed. She will prove she is unstable right in front of the bailiff. God, I love it when you talk dirty. Zachary laughed. The video ended with the sound of clinking glasses. The screen went black for 3 long seconds. There was absolute silence in the courtroom. No one breathed, no one moved. The weight of the truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Zachary Wilson had just admitted to fraud, theft, perjury, and conspiracy. Dominique Davis had admitted to falsifying medical records and perjury. Then chaos broke loose. You set me up, Zachary screamed, jumping up and pointing a shaking finger at Dominique. You wrote the report. It was your idea. Me, Dominique shrieked, her poised facade shattering instantly. You told me she was crazy. You told me to write it. You paid me. Sit down. The judge's voice roared like thunder. He did not use the gavel. He stood up, his face red with a fury I had never seen in a human being. Bailiff, the judge pointed a trembling finger at the doors. Lock the doors. Nobody leaves this room. Nobody. The bailiff moved fast, standing in front of the double doors. Arms crossed. 2 police officers who were stationed in the hallway stepped inside, hands on their holsters. The judge looked down at Zachary and Dominique. His eyes were burning with righteous anger. In 30 years on the bench, the judge said, his voice shaking with rage, I have seen liars, I have seen thieves, but I have never seen such a calculated, malicious mockery of this court. He turned to Timothy. Counselor, did you know about this? Timothy stood up, his hands raised in surrender, sweat dripping down his temples. Your Honor, I had no idea. I was relying on the expert witness. I am withdrawing as counsel immediately. Wise choice, the judge spat, because you will be lucky if you are not disbarred for negligence. He turned his gaze to Dominique Davis. She was shrinking in her seat, clutching her pearls, looking small and pathetic. Dr. Davis, you stood in my court under oath and presented a fabricated medical diagnosis to strip a mother of her child. Dominique stammered. It was a theoretical assessment. It was perjury. The judge slammed his hand on the desk. It was child abuse, and you, Mr. Wilson, you admitted to hiding assets. You admitted to provoking your wife to frame her. The judge looked at Taylor, who was still standing at the gate looking scared but brave. His expression softened instantly. Young lady, he said gently, thank you. You are the bravest person in this room. He looked back at the officers. Officers, take Mr. Wilson and Miss Davis into custody immediately. Charges include perjury, conspiracy to commit fraud, and contempt of court. And get the district attorney on the phone. I want financial fraud charges added to the list by lunch. The scene that followed was something out of a movie, but the satisfaction I felt was very, very real. Two officers marched toward the plaintiff's table. Zachary tried to back away, stumbling over his own chair. Wait, he stammered, his arrogance completely gone, replaced by the pathetic whimper of a bully who finally got punched back. It was just talk, it was wine talk. You cannot arrest me for a video. I can and I will, the judge said coldly. You confessed to hiding $2 million in the Cayman Islands to avoid equitable distribution. That is a felony, Mr. Wilson. The officer grabbed Zachary's wrists, pulling them forcefully behind his back. Click, click. The sound of the handcuffs locking was the sweetest music I had ever heard. Zachary looked at me, his eyes were wide, begging, Meredith, Kiana, tell them I am a good father. Think of Taylor. I stood up, my legs feeling stronger than they had in months. I looked him dead in the eye. A good father does not steal his daughter's future to buy a Porsche, I said quietly, my voice cutting through the noise, and a good husband does not gaslight his wife into thinking she is insane. They dragged him away. Then it was Dominique's turn. She was not begging, she was screaming, resisting the officer's grip. This is a mistake. Do you know who I am? I have a PhD from Yale. You will not have a license by tomorrow, the judge remarked dryly. Zachary made me do it, she shrieked as the officer cuffed her. He promised me marriage, he promised me the money. Looks like he lied to you too, I said as she was led past me. She glared at me, her mascara running down her cheeks, her perfect bun coming undone. She looked exactly like the hysterical woman she had tried to paint me. As the courtroom doors opened and the gallery erupted in whispers and gasps as the local finance golden boy and his mistress were marched out in shame, the judge banged his gavel to restore order. We are not finished, he said. We still have the matter of the divorce decree. He looked at me. Mrs. Williams the first owe you an apology. The court owes you an apology. We failed to protect you from this predator. Thank you, Your Honor, I whispered, clutching George Robinson's hand. George was beaming, looking 10 years younger based on the evidence presented. The judge declared, I am issuing a summary judgment. The judge did not even need to look at his notes. He spoke from the heart and from the law. One, he said, raising a finger, I am granting Kiana Williams an immediate divorce on the grounds of adultery and extreme cruelty. Two, full legal and physical custody of Taylor Williams is awarded to the mother. Mr. Wilson's visitation rights are suspended indefinitely pending a full psychological evaluation, a real one, and the conclusion of his criminal trial. I let out a sob of relief. Taylor ran through the gate and jumped into my arms. I buried my face in her puffy winter coat, smelling her shampoo and the faint scent of crayons. She was mine, she was safe. No Europe, no Dominique. 3, the judge continued, I am issuing an immediate freeze on all assets held by Zachary Wilson and Dominique Davis, domestic and international. The court will appoint a forensic accountant to recover the funds transferred to the Cayman Islands. All recovered funds will be awarded to Mrs. Williams as restorative alimony, and punitive damages for the marital home is awarded to Mrs. Williams, free and clear of any mortgage obligations, which will be satisfied by Mr. Wilson's remaining assets. And finally, the judge looked at Timothy, who was trying to disappear into the woodwork. Mr. Thomas, you will report to the Bar Association Ethics Committee by 9 a.m. tomorrow. If I find out you knew about that report being fake, you will be joining your client in a cell. Yes, Your Honor, Timothy whispered. Court is adjourned. The gavel banged. It sounded like freedom. George hugged me. We did it, Kiana, or rather she did it. He pointed to Taylor. I looked at my daughter. She was holding her broken tablet like a trophy. Did I do good, Mommy? She asked. You did good, baby, I cried, kissing her forehead. You saved us. We walked out of the courthouse into the bright winter sun. The air was cold, biting at my cheeks, but for the first time in months I did not feel the chill. I felt warm, I felt light. Zachary and Dominique were already in the back of police cruisers, surrounded by flashing red and blue lights. I did not even look at them. They were my past. Taylor was my future. 6 months later, the smell of burnt toast and silence is gone from my life. Now my kitchen smells of vanilla bean and fresh paint. I sold the big house. I could not live there anymore. Too many ghosts in the hallways with the settlement money. And yes, the forensic accountants found every single penny Zachary tried to hide. I bought a beautiful sunlit farmhouse with a big garden. And a wraparound porch. I also reopened my design studio. Keanu Williams Interiors is officially open for business. My first client, the judge's wife. Funny how life works. Taylor is thriving. She goes to a new school where she joined the robotics club. She has not asked about her father much. He is currently awaiting trial and looking at 10 to 15 years for fraud and perjury. Dominique lost her license and is facing jail time. 2-1 afternoon. Taylor and I were painting the walls of her new bedroom a bright cheerful yellow. Mom, Taylor said, dipping her brush carefully, can I ask you something? Anything, sweetie. Why did you cry that day in court when the bad lawyer yelled at you? I put down my roller. I wiped my hands on a rag and sat back on my heels because I was scared. Taylor, I thought nobody believed me. Taylor nodded thoughtfully. That is why I fixed the tablet, I said, sitting down next to her on the drop cloth. I still do not understand how you knew to record them or why you kept it a secret. Taylor smiled. It was a mischievous smile full of intelligence. Remember when you bought me the science kit, the one about observation? Yes, it said that a good scientist observes nature without disturbing it. If the animals know you are watching, they act different. I laughed, the sound bubbling up freely. So Daddy and Dominique were the animals? Yep, Taylor said, popping the pea. Daddy told me you were dumb. He said Mommy is too dumb to know what we are doing, but I know you are not dumb. You are the smartest person I know. You can build houses in your head. My eyes welled up with happy tears. So Taylor continued, I knew if I told you about Dominique you would yell at Daddy, and if you yelled Daddy would stop doing the bad things in front of me. He would hide, so I stayed quiet. I waited until I had the what is the word Mr. Robinson used? Evidence. Yeah, evidence, she said casually. I waited until I had the evidence, and then I waited for the right time to use it. Just like a trap. I sat there on the lush rug of our new farmhouse living room and just stared at my 7-year-old daughter. I tried to process the sheer magnitude of what she had just admitted to me. It was not just that she was smart for her age. It was something else entirely. She was terrifyingly brilliant in a way that actually gave me goosebumps. My little girl had outsmarted a multimillionaire business tycoon and a PhD-holding child psychologist using nothing more than a cracked tablet screen and the patience of a saint. You are absolutely incredible, Taylor Williams I finally managed to say, my voice trembling slightly as I pulled her into a crushing hug. I squeezed her tight, burying my face in her hair, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo and the fresh outdoors. I needed to feel that she was real and safe in my arms. But listen to me, baby, next time you find something like that, you just tell Mommy immediately, okay? No more secret missions on your own. It is too dangerous. Okay, she giggled, her voice muffled against my shoulder. She pulled back slightly and looked me right in the eye with a mischievous grin that reminded me so much of my own mother. Unless you get a boyfriend. Then I am investigating him too. We both burst out laughing, the sound echoing off the high ceilings of our new happy home. It felt so good to laugh like that, freely and without fear. The heavy cloud of anxiety that had hung over us for months had finally lifted. I looked out the big bay window toward the garden. The frost of that terrible winter was gone, replaced by the vibrant greens and yellows of spring. The flowers were blooming and the sun was shining down on the long grass. I realized in that quiet moment that I had lost a husband, but I had found myself. I had rediscovered the strong, capable woman I used to be before Zachary Wilson tried to dim my light. And more importantly, I had raised a daughter who knew the difference between a price tag and true value. Zachary thought he could break us. He thought he could buy happiness, manipulate the legal system, and steal our future just because he had the biggest bank account in the room. But in the end, he learned the hardest lesson of all. You simply cannot build a kingdom on a foundation of lies, especially when there is a little girl with a broken tablet watching your every move. He underestimated us, and that was his fatal mistake. And that, my friends, is exactly how I got my life back. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It was not easy to tell, and honestly reliving some of those moments was painful, but I hope it reminds you that no matter how dark it gets, the truth always finds a way into the light. You just have to be patient enough to let it shine. If you enjoyed this story and want to support me and Taylor, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And I want to ask you a question. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had a child spot something that you completely missed? I would love to hear your stories and read about the little detectives in your lives. Until next time, stay strong, keep your eyes open, and always trust your instincts.
Thank you for listening to this story until the end. Hopefully, every moment in the story has touched your heart, brought you some reflection, some emotion, and hope. Thank you for taking the time to experience it with us, and hope that each next story will always accompany you on your life journey.